The Yellowstone supervolcano is a large, active volcanic system located primarily in the northwest corner of Wyoming, in the United States. It's considered to be one of the largest and most dangerous volcanoes on Earth, with the ability to produce catastrophic eruptions that could affect the entire planet. The Yellowstone supervolcano has been given this name because it's a type of volcano known as a supervolcano, which is defined as a volcano capable of producing an eruption with a volume of more than 1,000 cubic kilometers. The Yellowstone supervolcano has erupted several times in the past, with the most recent eruption occurring about 640,000 years ago. The most significant eruption occurred about 2.1 million years ago, producing an ashfall that covered much of the western United States. The Yellowstone supervolcano is monitored closely by scientists, who use a variety of techniques to detect changes in the volcano's behavior. This monitoring includes measuring ground deformation, monitoring earthquake activity, and studying gas emissions. Rather worryingly, just recently, Russian officials have come forward and said that they have the ability to make Yellowstone erupt. This was recently announced on a television station, where they said that a Satan II nuke would be able to achieve this. One military commentator said that this new missile that has been developed is a special one, and that it has the ability to deliver a large number of nuclear warheads at once. The military official said the following: "It's impossible to build an all-looking defense system, which means that the United States is vulnerable. That is the first point. And the second point is that the Sarmat poses a threat to the most feared facility on United States territory, the Yellowstone volcano." End quote. They carried on by saying that if they were to do this, it would bring America to its knees, and said that United States officials should be careful what they say. The United States Geological Society has come forward and said that this would not be possible, and pointed out that the supervolcano located under Yellowstone cannot be set off in this manner. Military commentators have said this comment may have been made due to the fact that President Biden visited the Ukrainian capital. As some have pointed out, though, regardless of whether or not the supervolcano would erupt, there's still people living in this area, and an attack of this type would have a direct effect on them. According to the Home's statistics, there's currently over 1,000 people living directly inside Yellowstone National Park, with other residents living just outside of the park. Military insiders have said that this isn't a good sign, and that as of right now the relationship between the United States and Russia is not good, saying that it's the worst that it's been in years. Launching a missile of any kind is always going to have disastrous effects. All we can do right now is hope that it doesn't reach this point. One of the greatest fears of the modern era, due to its potential to cause an apocalyptic scenario never seen before, is that of the eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano. Though many might not be aware of its dangers, it appears to pose one of the greatest realistic chances of wiping out the majority of life on Earth, and possibly lead to the extinction of the human race. Referred to by scientists as a catastrophic super-eruption, the force and material that would be ejected from the massive Yellowstone supervolcano would be among one of the largest explosions to ever be recorded on the face of the Earth. When looking at estimated comparisons of this pressure and ejection of magma compared to that of the Mount St. Helens explosion, of which was claimed to be equivalent to the blasting force of 1,600 times the size of the atomic weapon dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima, it appears that the eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano would be roughly 10,000 times larger in estimated cubic kilometers than that of the eruption at Mount St. Helens. What this essentially translates to would be the immediate ejection of more than 2,500 cubic kilometers of ash, magma and materials, a size much larger than that of the 0.25 cubic kilometers ejected after the Mount St. Helens eruption. Though the supervolcano isn't expected to cause a massive upheaval of land, this large amount of pressure being released will still cause a blast wave that can cause damage out past the states of Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. Additionally, the Yellowstone supervolcano lies close to a number of sensitive fault lines all across the west coast. It's believed that this massive amount of pressure released in one moment, coupled with the massive amount of force generated via the super eruption, will create a domino effect of seismic activity that could lead to fault lines completely sliding in opposite directions, causing a number of massive earthquakes all across the west coast. The earthquakes would be some of the largest ever to have been recorded and would only lead to further damage of roads, highways, cities, and nearby constructions, completely blocking off those affected from reaching the help they would need. The eruption of the massive Yellowstone supervolcano will do much more than just emit a large amount of materials from the volcano itself. It's predicted that the massive amount of force and pressure released by the volcano will trigger other pockets of magma to release nearby in quick-forming shafts that will grow in size throughout the volcano's eruption. Though scientists are aware of the fact that the eruption of a volcano cannot trigger the eruption of nearby volcanoes, in the event of a supervolcano and its eruption, the incredibly large amount of forces and material buildup will lead to a pocket of nearby magma vents to form, creating a number of normal volcanic entities that will also spew out a large amount of volcanic materials. Though, technically speaking, the Yellowstone supervolcano is not triggering other dormant volcanoes, it will continue to form these vents, which will grow in size, and will appear to be similar to that of smaller volcanoes having formed. It's also believed that with a large enough tectonic plate shift, caused by the overwhelming seismic activity that will be caused by the forces of eruption behind the supervolcano, a number of large vents could form along the ridges of the shifting tectonic plates. If these plates shift enough, not only would there be a number of massive earthquakes, but there could be a number of newly formed volcanic entities all along the entire west coast. In essence, this means that the eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano would lead to a number of following eruptions, newly formed magma vents, and a domino effect of seismic activity that could cause the formation of new active volcanoes all along the entirety of the west coast of the United States, of which will only exacerbate the issues that spawn from ejected material, damage, and spewing ash. Research has found that after the eruption of a supervolcano, it has often been recorded that there tends to be a massive cooling event that occurs around the world. This is due to the fact that the ejection of a large amount of volcanic ash causes a global darkness event, preventing the planet from sufficiently warming up and causing a global ice age. This appears to also have been the case a mere 100,000 years ago, when the Toba supereruption occurred and nearly drove humanity to extinction. Prior to this event, there was an estimated 1 million human population. After the event took place, there were only 11,000 humans left, of which caused a massive bottleneck effect that allows us to see the time in which such an event took place. Additionally, this rapid death count occurred when the Toba supereruption caused a global blackout that lasted for more than 10 years. During this time, a massive ice age occurred, and an atmospheric cooling event that lasted for another 1,000 years. Given these calculations, it's expected that if the Yellowstone supervolcano were to erupt in the modern day, the amount of ash spewed would travel through the atmosphere and block out the sun from all around the world, leading to a modern-day ice age that would prevent the sun from being seen for 6 to 7 years in total, creating a seemingly endless darkness for all life on Earth and record low temperatures never before recorded. One of the main problems with the global cooling event is not that of the drop in temperatures all across the world, but rather that of its effect on crops on a massive global scale. With this expected worldwide blackout, researchers believe that, for more than 6 to 7 years, it will be impossible for farmers around the world to grow any kind of produce or grain. This also means that it will also be impossible for farmers to take care of livestock of any kind. Considering the fact that agriculture is the lowest rung on the ladder of economic scale, this would lead to disastrous effects on industry, development, construction efforts, feeding citizens, and the global economy. Essentially, there would be mass starvation all across the world as people raid grocery stores for the last remaining food in the world. Additionally, the blackout will lead to a number of wildlife populations immediately dying out as their habitats become destroyed, meaning that hunting and foraging will become impossible to sustain. Even a number of off-grid living situations would be disastrously affected, as the majority of doomsday preppers living on homesteads rely on local agriculture, solar panels for power, along with a number of other supplies that require their local habitats remaining intact. With these changes, the blackout will reach everywhere around the world, making no place safe enough to withstand such changes. Not only will this lead to riots within the short term, but it will overwhelmingly lead to the shutdown of government, civilization, and order itself. As mass starvation circles the globe, the human population will be expected to drop by an expected 95%, as the most developed countries will be affected the worst and the least developed countries will adapt the fastest. A lack of crops from around the world, the breakdown of infrastructure, inability to travel across damaged roads throughout the United States, as well as the complete 6 to 7 year darkness that would follow the eruption, means that, at the end of these initial damages, the entire world would begin to enter a stage of total economic shutdown. This will first begin at the center of damaged cities and the inability for governments from around the world to offer aid of any kind. As the volcanic ash spreads and brings darkness around the world, it will only take 3 days before all of the grocery stores run empty, as the shipping trucks fail to deliver necessary goods. After this occurs, raiding of supplies will quickly begin, as the needs of the people from around the world and starvation would begin. This panic will cause the total breakdown of all law and authority, as people center around their individual needs. The inability would then quickly follow farmers being unable to grow and harvest crops, along with many crops from around the world immediately dying out. The only chance one would have at outlasting such an event would require them to have created an underground facility, of which wouldn't be affected to the large amount of falling ash, the threatening panic of other people fighting for resources, as well as the storage of enough food, water and supplies to last for 7 years. Considering such a safe room does not exist for most, of which even most doomsday preppers only store enough food for 6 months to a year, outlasting such an event will prove to be impossible. Not only does this risk the extinction of all of human life on our planet, but we would see a global cooling event and an ice age lasting another 1,000 years following the 6 to 7 year darkness. So to summarize, if the Yellowstone supervolcano were to erupt, it would have catastrophic and far-reaching effects. The immediate impact of the eruption would be devastating to the surrounding area, with a massive explosion producing a high-velocity ash cloud that could reach several miles into the atmosphere. The ashfall would be widespread, potentially covering much of the western United States and affecting air travel, agriculture, and infrastructure. The surrounding areas would be subjected to a rain of ash and rock fragments, which would cause significant damage to buildings, vehicles, and other structures. In addition to the immediate effects, the eruption could have long-term impacts on the global climate. The ash and gases released by the eruption would be carried by winds around the world, potentially causing a volcanic winter that could last for several years. This could have a significant impact on global agriculture and could cause widespread famine. Overall, the eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano would be a catastrophic event with far-reaching and long-lasting effects. While the probability of such an event occurring in the near future is considered low, ongoing monitoring and research are essential to ensure that the risk is minimized as much as possible. Something interesting has just been captured by a local resident in Oregon. The individual who captured the object called 911 and said that they could see a large fireball in the sky, noting that they were worried that it might have been a plane that was having some difficulty. The images were then posted to social media, with various people putting forward their own theories for what it could have been. The 911 call revealed that the individual had taken pictures of the event, with Polk County Sheriff's Office soon arriving on the scene and taking their own photographs. Once officials in Oregon arrived on the scene, they reported that they started looking for a crash site. However, as the investigation continued, it's reported that the sheriff's office, along with locals in the area who turned up to help, couldn't find any evidence that something had crashed. Oddly enough, when investigators started to conduct further research, they reported that no plane was reported missing, but did note that there was a recent meteor shower in the area. The Polk County Sheriff's Office said the following: "That's what it was more likely attributed to, or what was seen. Although we're not 100% sure." End quote. The mysterious object was first seen at around 4:50 in the afternoon, but the sheriff's office said that their helicopter searches turned up nothing. The size of a meteor that NASA or any other space agency can detect depends on a variety of factors, such as the sensitivity of their detection instruments, the distance between the meteor and the Earth, and the speed and trajectory of the meteor. NASA has a program called the Near-Earth Object Observations Program, which is designed to detect, track, and characterize asteroids and comets that could potentially pose a threat to Earth. The program uses a combination of ground-based telescopes and space-based instruments to search for these objects. Generally, NASA and other space agencies can detect meteoroids as small as a few millimeters in size using ground-based telescopes, but they typically focus on detecting larger objects that could potentially pose a threat to Earth, such as those larger than 140 meters or 459 feet in diameter. However, it's worth noting that not all meteors are detected before they enter Earth's atmosphere. Small meteoroids can enter the atmosphere undetected and produce visible meteor trails, also known as shooting stars. These are usually harmless and pose no threat to Earth. Authorities further reported that after several investigations had taken place throughout the area, utilizing helicopters and people on the ground, there was no sign of the fireball, and also no impact site that would help them positively identify what the object was. The sheriff's office posted on its Facebook page and reached out to the public, saying that they did not know the exact location of where this happened. What's strange is that this isn't the first time that one of these strange fireballs has been witnessed in the sky. Oddly enough, other residents have said that while seeing these strange objects, they've also heard mysterious booms and questioned whether jets had been scrambled to investigate whatever these objects are. As many have reported, these strange fireballs have been seen above various countries, and in most of these cases, the strange objects have prompted police to investigate the sighting further. Many have said the same thing, suggesting that the fireball is an aeroplane that was in trouble, but some have disputed this, saying that although planes do fly over most of these regions, a lot of the time one didn't fly over at the specific time that the object was seen. As of right now, people are still speculating as to what these objects are and where they're coming from. The Central Intelligence Agency has recently declassified decades' worth of documents that looked into mysterious aircrafts. This caused excitement among amateur researchers, with them saying that those who've looked into these sightings have known about them for years. There's been approximately 2,700 documents that have been uploaded online, most of which detail the government's involvement with strange aircrafts. Those who've spent years researching this topic have said this is direct proof that the government is interested in this topic, and that it shows they've set aside large budgets to investigate what they are and how they're able to achieve what they do. However, although it seemed as though the Central Intelligence Agency was giving the general public an insight into some of their documents, those who looked into the files were not impressed. Basically, people couldn't read these documents, and in some cases, all of the information had been blacked out. Many comments followed a similar theme, with online users saying what was the point in releasing these documents if you're going to cross out all of the information. The Sheffield incident. Yorkshire in England isn't known for its abundance of mysterious aircrafts, but in 1997, on the 24th of March, local police received dozens of calls saying that some sort of aircraft had crashed in the region's lonely moors. The calls mentioned a low-flying plane or aircraft that had passed overhead towards the hills and mountains before disappearing. This was then followed by a bright flash and an explosion that could be heard for miles around. With reports of a crashed air vehicle, the police immediately began a search and rescue mission. A police helicopter, along with the fire service and mountain rescue, searched the area far and wide for any sign of the downed aircraft. Similarly, a local hospital was given notice of potential casualties. Soon after, Air Traffic Control and the Royal Air Force were sent news of the crash by police. Strangely, each of the organisations reported back that they had no missing aircrafts and that no military vehicles were currently flying in the area. This then led to the use of a Royal Air Force Sea King helicopter to assist the police in their search, and yet, after covering 40 square miles with dozens of professionals and high-grade equipment, nothing was found. In response to the lack of any kind of physical debris, the police launched a phone line for reports of a crash site. Almost immediately, the phone line was inundated with callers claiming to have seen military jets, as well as some kind of mysterious aircraft. With so many people reporting similar sightings, the police were forced to increase the scope of their previous search and enlisted even more members of mountain rescue. Similarly, the Royal Air Force cordoned a 10-mile air exclusion zone around Howden Reservoir. Despite these efforts, nothing was recovered, and the search was called off. Yorkshire police were left confused by the lack of evidence and were unsure of how to proceed. Some members of the public claimed the sighting was the cause of a phantom ghost plane. Later in 1997, a police representative said the following: "No explanation was ever found, and we remain open-minded about what was behind the sightings." End quote. In the years following, many theories have been posited in order to uncover what really happened over Sheffield that day. Some claim a cover-up had taken place by the military who were in pursuit of a mysterious aircraft. The crash, as the theory goes, was caused by a military jet. Since the Royal Air Force exclusion zone was put around the Howden Reservoir, this has led some to believe that the plane crashed into the water and bodies may have been retrieved during the search. Interestingly, the event was mentioned in the House of Commons on the 23rd of March in 1998. The then Ministry of Defence stated that there had been a low-flying military exercise taking place in that area on the 24th of March of the previous year. Scientists also support this, as the Seismology Department in Edinburgh confirmed that on the 24th of March, 2 sonic booms took place at 9:52 and 6 minutes past 10 in the evening. According to the department, these booms were likely to have been caused by an aircraft travelling at supersonic speeds or space debris burning up in the atmosphere. Still, the Royal Air Force refutes any involvement in the events described by onlookers, specifically because it was illegal to break the sound barrier over the United Kingdom. Likewise, they state that their exclusion zone was not out of the ordinary for routine search and rescue operations, and that they had no record of sonic booms by the Royal Air Force. The facts don't all seem to add up in this case, and the peculiar event that took place over the Yorkshire moors still perplexes many enthusiasts to this day. What exactly did crash near Sheffield in 1997? Many amateur researchers who've looked into this case have said that the Royal Air Force are unlikely to admit that they were involved in this strange event, and suggested that it was likely covered up by officials in the region. One user suggested that a mysterious aircraft was seen above the area, and so the Royal Air Force scrambled a couple of jets to investigate what the object was. This would explain the sonic booms that were heard in the evening. Investigations carried on and said that what most likely happened was a chase between the strange aircraft and the jets, but suggested that perhaps one of the jets malfunctioned and then crashed into the ground. Oddly enough, others who've looked into this case have said that pilots from across the world have reported the same thing, saying that when their jets get close to these objects, they start acting strange, noting that these aircrafts seem to have the ability to turn off the jet's electrics. This has caused some confusion in recent years, as the jets aren't being directly attacked, but are having some of their major functions shut down. As of right now, there's several of these documents that go into detail about mysterious aircrafts. One question that people have when it comes to these events is why don't governments just be open and honest with the general public? The answer to that question comes down to national security. They've openly admitted that these aircrafts are a national security threat, as they've been observed outmaneuvering their jets and also making their way into restricted airspace. This brings up a variety of different questions. How are they able to do this? How can they outmaneuver our most advanced jets? How do they achieve the speeds they've been observed doing? And ultimately, who do they belong to? As of right now, we can only speculate as to what these objects are, and hope that within the near future, the public will be told more about these mysterious aircrafts. So, what do you make of this strange object? Do you think it's a meteor, or is it something more mysterious? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.